How you store your router bits is more important than you may think. Not only do you want them organized so you can find what you're looking for, but the cutting edges can be easily damaged rolling around loose in a box or drawer. So I built this cabinet to keep all of my router bits and the accessories safe and organized. Building the cabinet is pretty straightforward. All of the parts are ripped and cross-cut from solid lumber. A cut list and measured drawings can be found in the description of this video. I'm using Freud's glue line rip blade and ultimate cutoff blade as needed. The cabinet parts are assembled using a lock miter joint in the four corners. So the parts can be cut to the exact dimensions of the cabinet. Mill the joint into both ends of the cabinet sides, lying flat on the table. Then, without changing the setup, the top and bottom get milled, standing tall against the router table fence. Before assembly, the top, bottom, and the sides all need a 1/4 inch groove to accept the back. This can be done in one pass using Freud's box joint cutter set, installed oriented to make a 1/4 inch cut. You could also use just the outside two cutters from a standard dado set. The cabinet box can now be assembled and clamped together until the glue dries. While the box dries, the shelves can be cut from 1/2 inch plywood and edged with strips of wood 1/4 inch thick and 3/4 wide. These cover the exposed edge of the plywood and provide a 1/4 inch lip to keep your bits from accidentally falling off the shelf. These shelves then get trimmed to final length and nailed into the cabinet through the sides. With the cabinet assembled, the doors come next. The cabinet is designed to utilize the inside faces of the doors for storage. Using slab plywood doors would make this simple, but it can be done with stile and rail doors. It just means the door panel needs to end up flush with the inside of the stiles and rails. So I cut the door panels first from 1/2 inch plywood and rabbited all 4 edges on the back side, leaving a 1/4 inch tongue all the way around on the face side of the plywood. The solid wood stock for the stiles and rails was then prepped, ripped to width, and cross-cut to final length. Using one of the PAR's stile and rail bit sets, I made a test piece using the stick cutters, checking it against my plywood panel to ensure that it fit and that it was flush across the back, adjusting the bit setting and the tongue cutter as needed. And once I was happy with the fit, I used the test piece to set the cope cutter in my router table, adjusting until I had the perfect fit. The ends of the rails were then cope cut, and the inside edges of all the frame parts were then milled using the stick cutter. The doors are then assembled and can be attached to the cabinet using whatever hinge system you prefer. You have some choices when it comes to how you'll store your bits in your cabinet. You can use the packaging the bit came in, make a bit stand that doubles as a setup block. I like this for profile bits, or use a basic wooden block. I use all 3 methods, but let's look at how we determine the block sizing. Using the leftovers from building the cabinet, I ripped the stock down to 2 1/8 inches wide. This is wide enough to keep the bits from tipping over, but narrow enough to allow 2 bits to fit front to back on my 5-inch shelves inside the cabinet. I then cut a bevel on one corner of all this stock at 45 degrees. This bevel provides me a spot to label the block, identifying the bit. The angle makes them easy to read when they're stacked on the shelves. This stock is then cross-cut into different lengths for different bits. 1.5 inches for single bits, 2.5 inches for larger bits that need a little more stability, and 4 inches for multi-bit sets. And all are drilled with appropriate holes along the center line to hold the bit. The cabinet is built 7 inches deep, but the shelves are only 5. This is done to allow the inside of the doors to be used for storage. Storing my 1/4-inch bits on cleats mounted to the doors saves a lot of space inside the cabinet. This is just a simple block cut with an angle on one edge and a series of 1/4-inch holes drilled into it, then glued and pinned to the door. And be creative with your door storage. The bushing rack started as a wider piece of stock, drilled with 2 different bits to create stepped holes of the appropriate size, then ripped down the middle to create the bushing rack. And there's still plenty of room to just hang things up wherever needed. Shelf spacing on this cabinet was determined by the bits I had and the ones I thought I might be needing. You can use this spacing, but don't hesitate to change it if your needs demand it. You'll also notice that the door panels ended up being painted black. This is actually chalkboard paint, which allows me to take notes or make cut lists where they're always visible from anywhere in the shop. This cabinet protects my router bits, makes them easy and convenient to find, and stores many of the accessories that I need both at my router table and when I'm hand routing. Making one for your shop allows you to not only build your skills, but also protects the investment that you've made in your router bits.